Well, it's a blue moon on Halloween.
Ooh.
It's a full moon on Halloween. So we figured, what the hell?
We'll
Sorry,
moon you
Joe. And
on
sorry,
Halloween?
you too. Oh, I got to take off the bandana. It is the Audible live here tonight on YouTube. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, Matt Waldman, Dr. Jene Bramel, and in the famous words of Dr. Jene, what in the hell is this? So, Sigmund, explain. Explain, please.
This is a tribute. This is not a costume. This is a tribute to Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen. And it was actually inspired. This one had asked, what's the best Van Halen song? And the first song that popped into my head was Hot for Teacher, because I'm a perpetual, adolescent. But I wished I had said Running with the Devil. I was like, oh no, the answer is Running with the Devil. So, I'm running with the devil. Got to stay in shape.
I like that. Running with the devil. He is Sigmund Bloom. Give us a game update, Bloom, before we get into the show.
Yeah, Atlanta's had no problem moving the ball on Carolina, but they've settled for 3 field goals. And Raheem Morris, as a head coach, 4th and inches, about 3 kicks the field goal to start the game. So that's usually the kind of decision that we'll say the football gods will make that come back to haunt you. Matt Ryan's dealing, except when he's under pressure, same as always. Brian Burns forced an interception. And we also saw Calvin Ridley go out with a foot injury. I'll leave that to Dr. Gene to give us more on that. Julio Jones looking good early. Of course, when they target Julio in the red zone, it's just not there. Todd Gurley not looking good. I think scoring that touchdown took his soul away. And Ryan Hill actually looking okay. There's a decent stretch to the first half when Gurley was not seen. You had to wonder if he was hurt. And they got 3 field goals, so they're up 16-14. Teddy's running the offense efficiently. You saw flea flicker to Curtis Samuel. Also, the second week in a row that Curtis Samuel scored as a runner, as a tailback, looking good, looking natural. Not seeing as much from DJ Moore. Some move the sticks, getting a good down and distance kind of completions to Robbie Anderson. There was also a missed tackle. A lot of penalties for that Atlanta defense. You see how Atlanta is so good at being bad.
And being bad. Bloom, this cowboy get-up for me is just what I wear when I go back home.
Yeah,
but I got to know, have you worn... that's a cop-out, basically. Yeah. But have you worn that to Mardi Gras? Like, what's going on there?
No, this is new, but if there is a Mardi Gras this year, I would certainly like that. That's part of the reason I got the deluxe horns, because I think that we can get some mileage out of these. They're good for just about any occasion. Maybe if raves ever come back, I think this would probably be pretty good at a rave.
Well, you certainly could carve up a turkey with those.
All right. Well,
wait. What deluxe horns? Why are those deluxe?
Well, because you got the spiral, these are no normal devil horns.
Did they say deluxe on the package?
I think they say antelope.
Break it down for our resident angel.
Yeah, I think this is the important thing is the cloven hooves, Gene. Come on, you know about the legend of old Scratch. As long as we got cloven hooves, a cloven hoof.
I just want to know what I'm looking for when my time comes. I just want to know what's deluxe and what's not.
Come and run with the devil.
By the way, Matt Waldman is one of those guys, and in any social setting, like everyone's having a good time, and then Matt comes in off the top rope. Yeah. Boom! Every single time. Dr. Jene Bramel, a guy that didn't play tonight, but it seems like as close, Dr. Gene, as Christian McCaffrey. And it sounded like he was pretty good in practice. They're probably just letting him get his wind, right? I mean, that's what I would assume. He could have played, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
What's the latest there?
I think it's pretty much what you said, is it's hard to activate someone for practice on one day after missing 5.5 weeks and then expect them to be in football shape without ever taking an individual drill with the team. So, they wanted to start the reconditioning process. He's very likely to be back next week, and hopefully what we heard about how well he's looking in practice translate next week into full practice and full workload right away, depending on what they think of how much they want to use Mike Davis. This has always been a Christian McCaffrey 90 to 95% snap situation, but Mike Davis has been playing well enough that maybe there's a little bit of easing back process. But I think we'll see him next week, and I think we'll see him get a pretty good workload.
Gene, it sounds like Jalen Reagor will be back on the field. It's a Dallas matchup, so that certainly gives us encouragement. But other than that, should we be putting him in our lineup?
No, I don't think so yet. The trends earlier this week did not look like he was going to play. He still needed to be cleared for contact, and apparently things went well enough this week where, with Alshon Jeffrey now dealing with a calf situation, I don't know how that comes up. It sounds like that's been going on for 2 or 3 weeks, but the Eagles didn't disclose that until just this week. Dallas Goedert may be coming back sooner than later as well. So I don't know that you put Rager in right away. It's just too much to expect with him to be out for a period of time. But from a health standpoint, it's not really anything should limit him. So if they clear him for contact and he seems like he gets through most of a full week to practice, you can think about it depending on who you have there. But I don't know that I would immediately expect a good 7 to 8 targets right away.
Which Seattle back should we have, Gene?
I don't know. This is when people say it gets hard to read Pete Carroll. It's hard to read Pete Carroll when he's not sure. So I think, you can kind of get a sense of what he's thinking. But on Monday, he said Travis Homer was improving from the knee injury. Carlos Hyde's hamstring injury wasn't major. It sounds like Chris Carson wants to play, but probably is not healthy enough to do so. So DJ Dallas is also on the injury report with an arm injury, but he's fully practicing. That doesn't seem to be a concern. I don't know what to think of what Pete Carroll has said about Carlos Hyde, and the fact that none of them are still practicing on Thursday gives you concern. So we are going to know tomorrow kind of where things stand. Brian Schottenheimer has said we're going to have to get creative and we'll figure out what to do. It's been an interesting week of practice as they try to figure out what they will do if all they have is DJ Dallas and whatever else they can bring up to the active roster this weekend. So I don't think we're going to see Chris Carson this week. I don't think we're going to see Travis Homer this week, but that's more speculation than confidence. And I really have no idea what to think of Carlos Hyde. So I think there's a chance, I think there's a chance he goes, but I just don't have a good feeling on what Pete Carroll has had to say yet. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that we'll see Hyde do something in practice tomorrow and Homer do anything, but it wouldn't shock me to see both Carson and Homer be DNPs and be declared out on Friday.
Well, listen up and listen tight, pilgrims, and Dr. Gene. It is a Broncos show. So Philip Lindsay out there today. He was not out there on Wednesday. This is just standard where a guy's going to be limited just to see where he's at. And do you feel confident that he will play against the Chargers on Sunday if he doesn't have any ill effects from practicing today?
Yeah, you've got a better insider judgment than what I have there. But yes, in general, the concussion protocol is we will return you to some individual drills and a little bit more strenuous exercise after your symptoms have resolved. And if you do well with that, then we're going to put you through some more strenuous individual drills. We won't clear you for contact, and then you go to the independent neurologist. So the fact that on Thursday he was cleared to do some stretching and a little bit of individual drills tells you that they want to work him back in if he does well. So if we hear that he's doing more in practice, I think there's a chance that they'll send him to the neurologist on the weekend and get him cleared to go. I think it's still questionable, but it's more questionable than doubtful at this point.
Gene, the devil is in the details. Give us the details on Aaron Jones and whether you think the Packers are going to clear him.
I think this is what we got with the Packers, right? So from what Tom Pelissero said on Thursday today, that they didn't think he was all that injured, and Aaron Jones really wants to play, but we say time and time again that Green Bay is very careful about their soft tissue injuries, and they want their players essentially fully healthy before they clear them. And for him not to practice on Wednesday or Thursday is not a great sign. It tells you that they're planning to be without him. I think it was, the fly in the ointment here is they allow him to fly to Houston last week, knowing that he probably wasn't going to play. And then not to be practicing on Wednesday and Thursday doesn't sound great to me, but maybe, they've done this with a couple of players this year, Robert Tonyan last week and Mercedes Lewis off and on the past couple of weeks, where they will let them miss some practice time if they're not all that concerned about him. You'll see them do a little bit more on Friday and you'll feel a little bit better. But Aaron Jones hasn't talked to the media this week, hadn't practiced all week. Midweek calf strain with the conservative medical staff with soft tissue injuries. I think you have to consider him doubtful unless we get a very positive Friday report.
Well, I just have to ask this, and I guess probably Cecil can probably answer some of this too, Gene, but what kind of bushwhacking SOB would keep playing Noah Fant at the end of a game with a high ankle sprain and let him get rolled up like that? I would have to think that, maybe Albert O has some, powers of suggestion as well on the coaching staff to get his ass out of there. So I'm just wondering if Noah Fant is he's going to play, but is it going to be playing quotation marks or for real?
Yeah, they allowed him to come back to a full practice on Thursday. So assuming there weren't any concerning signs, then I think you'll see him play this week and hopefully get as many snaps and opportunities as he did last week.
Yeah, we'll see that. I was asked about Noah Fant on the ever popular Twitter, and I was like, well, he looks like he did on Sunday, Matt, which is, like he didn't look like himself. No. And he looked frustrated, obviously, with Drew Lock missing him wide open. The Audible Live, as we're taking around the injury news and notes, and Fantasy Jams want to know about Miles Sanders. Gene, what's the feel there?
I don't think he's likely to play this week. Another player who hasn't practiced that much. It was called a 1 to 2 week injury. Wasn't much chance of him returning for a Thursday night game last week, but there was an outside chance that he'd only miss a week and get ready to go. But we've seen from the Eagles that if their players aren't playing, it's hard for them to get cleared in time to go. And he's not a player that you would expect to not do anything, do more on Friday, and then get anything close to his usual workload. So they're getting their receiving core healthy a little bit at wide receiver and tight end, not so much at running back, I don't think. I'll be surprised if Sanders goes.
Gene, what about former Arizona State Sun Devil N'Keal Harry and his concussion?
How many more rounds can you go like this, do you think?
I don't know.
I'm waiting to see. I'm sure I'm not the only one that picked up on that. Another player, the concussions this week, I'm kind of surprised. I think Lindsey's probably the only one that's going to go. And it doesn't look like Harry he's not practicing much. There hasn't been any indication that they're going to put him through individual drills. The Patriots over time have been pretty conservative with their concussion returns. So I think it's unlikely that he plays this week. We always leave it open for a change of Friday practice participation, but I'd consider him doubtful, and we're probably looking at week 9.
All right, so I'm just curious here about this, and I know it's a little bit more than just injury stuff, but Andy Dalton and his concussion, and in addition to that, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are that the Dallas Cowboys played Washington, and he got laid out like that with a cheap shot. And I'm asking Gene this because Gene and I became friends in Las Vegas because of a poker game. And somebody being a complete ass to Gene, and Gene, when we left, Gene was like, I thought we were both going to end up in jail after during the weekend because of this guy. So I'm just curious because I had Gene's back, and this certainly wasn't the Cowboys versus Washington. So I'm just curious what Gene thinks about the fact that the Dallas Cowboys just stood there and let their quarterback just get manhandled like that.
I don't remember the details of that. That might have been the first time I've thought about that since that night, actually. I'm thinking a little bit of it now. You're going to have to fill in my old brain blanks about that story. I do remember a little bit of that, but that happens more often at the poker table than probably. Not that I want to murder someone, but maybe the dealer, but not the other players. Now, I think I was compelled by some of the other kind of wide angle views and some of the things I saw from some respected offensive linemen who are on Twitter, where it would appear that teammates went to Dalton rather than after the other players. They showed concern for him to make sure he was okay in the moment, rather than what you might see sometimes where the adrenaline is high and you immediately go after the person that even he was unconscious on the field. So it makes sense that they would go after and look after him first, show concern there, and then had he kind of rolled over and felt okay right away, I think you probably would have seen some of those guys, even the young guys who, hadn't been in that situation a lot before, probably would have maybe reacted a little bit differently. But this is a situation where I think I would fall on the side of Jerry Jones when he said this isn't anything to be concerned about. I think they, in hindsight, looking at that in a different way on the All-22, they were all caring for their teammate rather than standing up for him by running after Bostic. So
I just know there'd be riots in every city in the AFC North if something like that happened, whether it was good or bad. Right or wrong.
So that's true, and that was a weekly occurrence between Steelers and Bengals and Ravens back in the day. Yeah, that is true. But that's I'll stop there.
Time,
we can. There's things to be said about Vontaze Perfect and. and the like. So anyway, yeah.
Yep. We got costumes abound here on the Audible Live little pre-Halloween edition, and a guy that looks like he dresses up, even though it's just regular attire, is Gardner Minshew. So Mr. Mullet, Mr. Magic Mullet, the news coming out today. Get Mike Glennon ready, Jake Lutton. What's the latest on Gardner Minshew? What's the outlook there for the young QB?
I don't know yet. I saw that report, and frankly, I forgot to go back and investigate it a little bit more. So I heard thumb issue and then some other fractures as well, I think is what I saw. So, and then I feel like I just briefly skimmed over a tweet that said maybe it was something he could play through. I don't know. This seems to me like it's probably going to be a bit of an absence and see where we go, especially because it's on his throwing hand. But I'll have more on that Sunday and then through the week. I wouldn't expect him to play this week just based on the brief thing that I saw, but we'll look into that more as we go. Actually, they're on bye, are they not?
Right. They're on bye this
so
week.
That may be why it didn't jog my memory as I went through the injury report today. So we'll see. We have seen quarterbacks play through thumb injuries before. Maybe it's possible. I think we'll probably get some more information from Doug Marrone through the weekend and on Monday, and then we'll come back to that next week. But I'd consider him doubtful unless there's something I'm obviously missing there.
Gene, did the Vikings make a deal with the devil to get Dalvin Cook back on the field? Or is this groin injury 2-week absence basically jiving with your return to play timeline?
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay. Mike Zimmer doesn't say much about players, and he said he assumed Cook was going to be able to play. Everybody from Tom Pelissero, who was connected with the Vikings locally in the past, said there was a 99% chance he was going to go, even though he's limited in practice. It's who's there? Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, I don't know, man. The chin thing is, I don't get it.
They love it. They love the chin.
I never.
Next year, Bill Cowher. Do Bill Cowher.
See, it's not going to be any of us that makes Gene cry. It's going to be the football guys, readers, listeners.
Well, just shout out to Five-ish. I think I'm a little bit blessed in that he's not routinely in the chat room anymore, because Lord knows. Which, by the way, I noticed my little bit of YouTube segment on the Waiver Wire show now includes some old Five-ish art that really does not need to be circulating any longer. Who is it? Gary Kubiak is the offensive coordinator out there in Minnesota now. Is that who I saw attached to that? Yep. So he said even when he's not practicing, they're totally fine with giving Dalvin Cook his full workload. And I couldn't remember for certain it was Kubiak or not, but it was the offensive coordinator, so it was Kubiak that said that. And I'm compelled by that as well. So I think he goes this week, and hopefully he's close to enough to a full recovery that we don't have too much risk of aggravation.
So what's up with Michael Thomas these days?
Who knows? We're not going to get anything out of New Orleans. I mean, Sean Payton again said this week, I'm not giving you updates about anything, especially injuries. So good luck to y'all is essentially what he told the beat writers there in each one of the press conferences. And that's been the case for the first 8 weeks of the year. So I think it's interesting that they allowed him to practice today. So maybe this is a situation where we're going to see how your hamstring responds to a little bit of individual drills and some stretching today. And if you feel pretty good, we'll let you do more on Friday and call you a game time decision. The ankle should not be a concern anymore. The hamstring doesn't seem to be a significant issue from what we've heard before. Still some swirls about discipline issues and trade concerns and all that sort of stuff. So maybe there's a little bit more going on off the field and that might be bleeding into the injury discussion a little bit. But to see him in pads on Thursday was a more reassuring sign than you'd think. My sense is probably still on the doubtful side of questionable, but I think Friday's practice participation may open up the chance for him to be called a game time decision rather than to have been ruled out on Friday, as has been the case since week 1.
It is the Audible. We're rounding up here on the injury portion of the live show, and I haven't even been drinking yet, and I can't even say portion. But we had the chat room wanting to know about Chris Godwin's finger. And, of course, not playing this week, but just, they'd be back the week after that. Okay, fine. But hit finger surgery, dude. What's that going to look like the rest of the year?
Yeah, it depends on what was injured and how extensive the repair was and whether or not it's going to interfere with his ability to catch the ball. So there are some finger injuries that require fixation that are a good month just because the location and the type of injury is unstable enough to where not only could there be an issue with splinting and ball security, but also it's too risky to take a hit in that area with the ball or going to the ground or whatever, and becoming a longer term issue for a wide receiver. This one doesn't seem to be in that category. We're hearing that this week isn't possible, but there's an outside chance he plays next week, and they're not certain yet. So they want to see probably swelling, how he responds to the procedure, whether or not he can have a splint there that doesn't interfere with his ability to catch and block. So I think we'll know more this time next week on Godwin, and hopefully it's a shorter term absence rather than a 3 to 4 week situation.
Gene, The Devil Went Down to Georgia is not a song about Devontae Freeman's time with the Atlanta Falcons. But on his new team, the Giants, are we going to see him run for 1 yard per carry, or is it going to be Wayne Gallman on Monday night?
I am so impressed. Gold fiddle for you for sure there. There wasn't a lot from the Giants folks today, other than some level of concern that maybe this is going to be a little bit more concerning than it looked to be last week on Friday night. So I didn't like the DNP a good week after the injury, and hopefully we see a little bit more. They've got Wayne Gallman, they've got Deion Lewis, a couple of other players there that can carry the load a little bit, so to speak. So I'm a little bit skeptical with Freeman, but it's too early in the week to make a determination with any certainty about whether or not he's likely to go.
Yeah, I had to retire my costume because after last year with Ben Roethlisberger fan, I got my wife's wig all full of beer, and that was at the end of that. So, no, seriously. Let's see. Aaron Jones and the calf injury. I mean, I would think that a calf injury, even minor ones, are pretty tough to deal with. I would think they're in the same range of hamstrings. Are they not, Gene, in terms of like troublesome, in terms of ability to be aggravated again?
Yeah. I think any soft tissue injury kind of puts you in that category a little bit, and Jones wouldn't be any exception. And that's why the Packers are being cautious with him. They know, as we've seen with, had Julio Jones taken an extra week off, maybe weeks 4, 5, and 6 wouldn't have been as painful for him as they would have been. And the same thing goes with Jones. And when you've got a capable offense around him, not that Aaron Jones is a slouch, but between Jamal Williams and the other players that they've got in that backfield, they have the ability to play through that Tampa Bay game last week notwithstanding. So I think this has everything to do with how Green Bay approaches injuries more so than it does whether or not Aaron Jones is pretty close to being ready to go, which I suspect he probably is. I don't think this is all of a sudden going to turn into a 4 to 6 week injury. I think we are continuing to be on the cusp, and if he doesn't have full strength in that calf muscle, then they're probably not going to let him go.
Have we talked about AJ Brown? Sorry, I'm running the chat room. I'm doing the editing. It's AJ Brown, knee injury, thoughts, concerns, calculations. What are we doing here?
No, you can't say he's fine. He's requiring some treatment, but they're mostly just giving him practice reps off. At this point, he has proven on multiple occasions, multiple games, that he's over that knee bruise that he's had. He's probably still having some soreness, but it's not slowing him down at all. And there wasn't anything last week or in this week's practice report so far to make us think otherwise.
Gene, what about former Duke Blue Devil Jamison Crowder this week?
He's gonna get them all.
That is amazing. Like on an Easter egg hunt of all Easter egg hunts here.
Right. It's like Audible bingo, devil bingo.
If you had Jamison Crowder, you win.
Clarity there for sure. Waiting to hear what the Jets have to say. It was good that they got him back to a limited practice, but similar to last week, they are using this as a gauge for how well he's doing. The beat writers aren't necessarily positive that he's going to play. They're looking at this in the same way. If his hamstring responds well, actually it's groin at this point, if the groin responds well to how today's practice participation goes, then we'll see him do a little bit more tomorrow, and then he'll probably be good to go. But again, pretty similar situation to last week with the extra benefit of him having a week for some recovery time.
How long does J.K. Dobbins get a chance to maybe get an extended audition to have this job with Mark Ingram's ankle?
Yeah, at least this week, maybe. John Harbaugh was trying to say that this high ankle sprain was low grade enough that they thought it was a 1 to 2 week situation. He'd be good after the bye. Ingram probably isn't a player that needs to practice in order to play. But the fact that he's gone a couple of weeks without practice and still not practicing on Thursday, the Ravens are a team that is a little bit less likely to play players if they're not able to practice with a new injury. Now, from Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews to Marquise Brown and many other players over the years, if it's a known situation that they've already played through, then you'll see them miss practice time, especially earlier in the week, and then go ahead and play. For certain, you're going to see if he's not ruled out. If Ingram is just no chance to play, they're going to rule him out, and that's that. But this is a situation where, although the Ravens often list players questionable with every intent of playing them, if Ingram is listed questionable, he probably is going to be a true game time decision. We're going to have to watch it carefully through the weekend. But I don't like the way this one is trending. I don't think he's going to go.
He is Dr. Jene Bramel. You follow him on Twitter at Jene Bramel and check out his second opinion blog at footballguys.com. Dr. Jene, I'd like you to go as Dr. Krieger from Archer sometime, but you'd have to grow your beard back. Like, why the clean shaven thing? You've been that way. Were you that way at the Senior Bowl? Has it been about a year?
No, it's been since July when I've had to switch the mask that I had to wear for COVID. So I can't wear I'm scary enough to the kids as it is. And if I were to keep the beard, I would have had to wear one of those spaceman things to protect myself. So the N95s do not fit appropriately and aren't as protective if there's anything between your face and the mask. So the beard had to go.
Okay.
You could have just worn that outfit for Halloween and you'd look like the Fly, man.
That's true. I left that one at work today, though. So I do have some fancy goggles, and that's probably what I should have done. The joke today was I dressed up as Maverick in the office because for some reason we decided to do 80s characters.
Okay.
None of the patients, obviously, have been born. Next year, I'm not going to have any patients that were born last century. How old am I? And then shortly, there's probably few of my parents that were born in the 80s. So people are looking at me like, who are you again? So, the joke was, when I changed to do our sick clinic in the afternoon, I was like, at some point, what I'm doing right now is actually going to be the Halloween costume where my goggles and mask and pretty gowns and everything else are going to be the costume. But that's what I should have done tonight. I saw somebody put in the chat room that I should have dressed up, or I'm looking like I dressed up as a doctor. So not so much anymore.
Gene, the eye makeup and also the past references, we're just eroding the norm. So next year, Dr. Frankenfurter. All right. I'll get the corset.
I may be ready for that by this time.
Is Dr. Jene Bramel. He's better than all of us combined. Dr. Jene, be good, brother. Have a safe and happy Halloween, and we'll talk to you soon.
Indeed. Good luck, everybody. See you.
There we have him, Dr. Jene Bramel, here on the Audible. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, Matt Waldman. Look at how I can move us around. Hollywood Squares, ladies and gentlemen. No whammies. Stop. Nobody gets
all lemons.
Right. Bloom, give us a game update.
Yeah, Carolina gets stopped on 4th down. Atlanta kicks another field goal. Carolina gets stopped on 3rd down. Tries a fake punt. So Raheem Morris, 4 field goals. That's not going to get it done. Matt Rule says a fake punt might get it done. And, this is a game for Carolina to stay in playoff contention at home on the national stage. So putting all the chips in the middle. They converted Jeremy Chin with a 28-yard run, and I'll see if that gives them the momentum.
We got to fight now.
Because of Teddy, right?
Yeah.
That's the chat room saying. What's going on, Matt?
It looks like I'm trying to look at it again here if my television will agree with me here, but it looks like that he got probably hit or brought down a little rough, and so his lineman came to his aid. And that's, and of course he's not knocked silly either, but yeah, it looks like he kind of got tripped up by Dante Fowler. He kind of kicked Teddy on the way down. So the Carolina offensive line took exception to that, as I think makes sense that they should.
Yeah, and they should be taking exception to that. Let's get into some of the conversation. Then I got a surprise. What's going on, Matt?
It was a late hit. You see an elbow from 92. Simmons comes in there and lays the elbow at the back of the base of his skull, and that's why they came and did that.
Wow,
that makes sense.
Wow,
while he was on the ground. Yeah.
Eesh. Okay, that's what's going to happen when they love their guy and they love Teddy like we love Teddy. We also have a great appreciation for Tua, and I've been putting it this way, Matt, and we'll start with you on this kind of roundtable conversation, is that if you like what you saw with Justin Herbert, just you wait until you see Tua. And obviously, team's very excited. Tua's, ready to go in their eyes. I know Fitzpatrick was surprised, although I don't know why necessarily. But everyone loves what they're seeing from Justin Herbert for good reason. But what do we anticipate seeing from Tua, and then the effects on Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Mike Gesicki, anybody running the ball? Like, what's the Tua effect? What's the logical way to look at this Dolphins quarterback situation?
Well, I think the logical way to look at it is that the fact that he's had this much time to prepare is a positive. The fact that he's actually had a real quarterback who will be his mentor and has been with a number of teams is another positive, unlike, say, Cleveland, where they don't do mentorships. They only bring in old quarterbacks if they're thinking about replacing you. But in Miami, they had that with Fitzpatrick. And you also have Chan Gailey, who's very good at being able to get the most out of even mediocre talents at quarterback from what we've seen in the past. So you're probably going to see with Tua a lot of read option, a lot of, RPO type of looks, a lot of play action with movement, because he's much better at moving around the field as on rolls and bootlegs, and what you're going to see from Fitzpatrick. And then just the fact that he can scramble and buy time. And he has a good deep arm. He is someone that's going to be he's also going to be willing to throw the ball up and let guys win the football. So that does aid guys like Devontae Parker and Preston Williams and even Mike Gesicki, because that's really working up the seam and being able to win the ball above the rim is where his athletic ability really shines. So those are going to be the real positives with this, is that I think those three main players are going to continue to play well. You might see some opportunities where a guy like Jakeem Grant or Isaiah Ford, who are good after the catch, you might be able to get some looks for them that are real positives in terms of, run after the catch type of skill. And this is a pretty good offensive line. It's been a competitive team. So I would expect, Herbert's playing better than I think most people expected. And I think I would even say that while long-term, I would say if you like Herbert, get a load of Teddy, I might say this year, we may not want to say, wait till Teddy gets on the field with Herbert, because Herbert's playing well enough that, I don't know if he's exceeding expectations in a lot of ways. But I'll say this, it's been fun. I do believe that Tua Tagovailoa has a shot to be a more productive player than Joe Burrow. I've thought that since the beginning of the season, that he would be better than Burrow down the stretch due to that offensive line. I posed that question in the Football Guys Roundtable, otherwise known as Matt Waldman's light and friendly trolling of the Football Guys staff on a weekly basis. And one of those trolling questions was, who would you rather have? This was before it was announced, Tua Tagovailoa or Joe Burrow. And everybody took the bait and pointed out to me like I was a complete dumbass that Tua Tagovailoa wasn't even playing yet at that point. And I just thought, well, I guess you guys were looking for something easy to say in our, that week. But no, seriously, like they were going, we don't know anything about whether Tagovailoa was going to play or not. And I didn't know either. But it was just a fun question to be able to pose and see whether anybody would say, yeah, I could see if he gets into the game that things would work out. But a week later, they benched him, and they said, Mark Schofield pointed this out, that when Tagovailoa, during the camp, they said, we plan to put him in during the bye week. Well, they're following that plan, even though they're 3-3, and 3-3 might be good enough for them to be still competing for a wild card in that division, because New England's it's the worst New England's looked since, probably the Raymond Berry era, so.
I was going to say like the John Stevens era, although that wasn't really an era. Although
I like John Stevens. There we go.
He was Rookie of the Year. They had two Rookie of the Year backs, I think almost back to back, right? Because they had Leonard Russell the year after that. So there you go. We're old. Sigmund, how are you approaching this Tua situation?
Yeah, I'm just trying to glean what I can from the players that he's worked with, I mentioned this on the show, Omar Kelly reported that Mike Gesicki said they were on the scout team together, and he ran full speed routes with Tua. So, this wasn't a situation where there was a quarterback competition and Tua got a lot of time with the first team offense. You talk about backups. I don't know if maybe there's something there with Isaiah Ford or something like that. What I'm most interested in, and I'm curious to hear what Matt Waldman has to say about it. He might say it's a big nothing burger, it's a non-starter, is how this offense might change going from a right-handed offense to a left-handed offense, how that could open up different parts of the playbook or change how they attack a defense, or is it something that really is insignificant? It's basically the same and just the mirror image.
No, I think that's a great question because one, I think some of your younger receivers, if they've never played with a left-handed guy, may have to get used to the spin of the ball. That might be a little bit odd for them. On top of that, too, you are rolling, in those cases, rolling towards the left tackle. Well, that's not bad, but at the same time, that's also where the best edge defender is too. I would say that Miami's offensive line's pretty good. So I think that that's probably going to prove helpful, especially for the fact that defenses aren't always accustomed to that either. So it's kind of a two-way street type of situation where you may see some mistakes by players on the offense due to that, but you may also see defenses not accustomed to having the quarterback roll to their side in those type of scenarios, especially linebackers and slot defenders who are in the middle of the field who might be anticipating something else.
Yeah, why don't we see more left-handed quarterbacks?
Because just like they did in school, like they probably made you correct. They probably didn't like left-handers and made them correct. Made them right-handed and stuff like that. I mean, they probably didn't like it. Who knows that? Or we could just say what it used to be is that it was the sign that you were like influenced by the devil, I guess.
Exactly.
There we go.
Look at Bloom. He lighten up anytime you mention him. Our man Mookie, you're winning the costume contest, Bloom. No doubt.
It's all inspired by Van Halen. I think that we can all go back to a different point in our childhood. Whenever we first got that scent of brimstone, we first learned about the wicked things that were out there, and I guess we all might have had different.
Well, how many times have you seen them?
What, Van Halen?
Yeah,
I actually never got to see Van Halen.
You didn't? Oh.
They were, I think, what was it, Monsters of Rock in the 80s, the Monsters of Rock tour.
I saw him with David Lee Roth and Van Hagar.
Okay, I only saw Van Hagar. I saw him on the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour.
I saw the 5150.
Ooh.
And I saw the 1984.
Oh, wow. Back to back.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. Respect.
There we go.
Can anyone name the third singer of Van Halen?
Oh, jeez.
Or can anyone name his former
From
band?
Extreme, you mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You remember his name? Gary Sharon.
Gary Sharon. That's it. There you go.
Yep. All right. I got to break into some Sammy Hagar tequila tonight, fellas. But it looks like PJ Walker's in. Is that right?
Yeah.
Bloom?
Teddy goes to the tent. It was a double dirty hit. It was Dante Fowler tripping him, and then as he's going to the ground, Charles Harris does a atomic elbow, and Harris gets ejected for that. So it's just not. You see the reaction is not Teddy. Come on, Teddy, not Teddy. But PJ Walker's in there. I think it is kind of exciting to see what PJ Walker can do, because I think if we were to have a discussion of the most interesting unknowns in the backup quarterbacks, PJ Walker would be at or near the top of the list. So getting a chance to see what he looks like out there, this is still a league without 32 starting quality quarterbacks.
Right.
And PJ Walker has a chance to show that he might be one.
Well, and Walker looking so good and also working with Matt Rule. So we already know that connection. We saw it with Robbie Anderson from the Temple days. It's like, okay. And PJ, I talked to him after the XFL folded, but before he signed with Carolina. And then that's a guy that, you root for, Matt. There's a couple of guys out there, certainly, Jordan Tamu from the XFL. We're going to do hot XFL tonight, Matt. Because, of course, I got to ask you about Ben DiNucci or Jake Luton. Like, we're going to get pretty deep. And, hell, COVID's just firing back up because the weather's getting cold and, maybe people aren't following protocols. But, okay, if we're going to go Jake Luton route, if we're going to go Ben DiNucci, did they sign Cooper Rush yet? Whatever.
Yeah.
What are we getting, Matt?
Well, I mean, when you look at a guy, and to talk about PJ Walker, I think the one thing that I would like to say, and Teddy is throwing passes right now, so that's a good sign. He's warming up, so he might get a shot. But just one thing I would like to mention about that is that, nah, man, I don't sing, but I do, but with a tuner, with a tuner here, and it's not for singing for show, that's for sure. But I'd like to note that, the reason PJ Walker is probably going to be in that game is because we've seen a trend with guys who should be NFL starting quarterbacks or get that opportunity, but they screwed it up and they lost the trust of their team because they didn't prepare. Paxton Lynch didn't prepare well. Johnny, I would say Baker Mayfield admitted this past year that last year he didn't prepare. He wasn't working the way he should. And honestly, I think they should flush his starting opportunity down the toilet soon, but we'll see how much false hope they hang on to. And certainly Will Grier. Will Grier said this past year he didn't prepare to be the backup quarterback. And when he was put in the game, he was lost. Once you admit that, and once they know that about you, forget it. You're just fighting to be on a team. They're going to let his contract go out. And this is a guy that could have been a starter talent. So Ben DiNucci has good footwork in terms of being able to manage the pocket and move around. He's kind of got a little of that Tony Romo type of ability to move around. He's got a decent arm. He can read the field not too badly. One thing we did see is in his rookie moment, his first play was a toss play, and I watched that toss play, and he looked like he was trying to set a volleyball. I don't know if it was nerves, but I thought somebody at James Madison had to have taught him how to toss a football. And I'm not saying James Madison University, where he played, probably high school, because if some high school had to have taught him how to toss a ball. His dad had to have taught him how to toss a ball. So, but anyway, those were nerves. The rest of the game, I think there's some promise there. It's just a matter of really he's just getting stuck in there to he's just getting stuck in there at a point where he's going to make mistakes, and with this offensive line, I don't think there's anybody short of Dak Prescott who's going to be able to manage what's going on along that offensive line unless Zach Martin comes back soon. Jake Luton's got a big arm. He's a tall kid with a big arm who can rocket it down the field. He's someone that maybe a little clunky as a mover.
Was he at the Senior Bowl? Was he one of those after Montez? I think I just didn't even pay attention.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, those were the guys we were watching.
And then we fell asleep. Yeah. But then it was but no, Jake Luton. I mean, Jake Luton was a compelling guy, last year, had one really decent year. And he's someone that will attack downfield. The Jaguars liked what they saw from him enough to make him a late pick, I think. It's just going to be a nice little audition for him to see if he can be a backup and then maybe grow more from there. But, the big thing with him is the arm, the willingness to go into tight windows, the willingness to let guys go up and win the ball. And that's a nice matchup for the type of receivers that they have in Jacksonville.
Bloom, you're probably not a Tenacious D guy.
I appreciate what Tenacious D does. I'm off center there.
Okay, now you're centered.
Now we're centered. I appreciate what Tenacious D does. I think that Tenacious D, kind of like Van Halen. I mean, really, I also think of a band like Ween. That we're all still kids, like 9-year-old boys inside.
Right.
And I think that Tenacious D, the film, Jack Black, I would be. Kate and I have talked about this. If you were putting together a film festival of films all with one actor starring, the Jack Black Film Festival would be one of the best film festivals, and it would not be just
a little
one
bit of
kind of
everything.
Movie. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't be just one kind of film. So I mean, Jack Black's like one of the most improbable stars, and I think what he's done. I have nothing but great things to say about Tenacious D.
Well, if Matt won't sing, I'll throw out a little ditty for you. Climb upon my faithful steed, then we're gonna ride, gonna smoke some weed. Climb upon my big ass steed and ride. Mm-hmm.
Nice
Tribute.
There we go.
So there you go. I will never do that again, and I apologize for anyone that was listening. As we wrap up tonight's show, gentlemen, a more serious topic, which you're going to listen to a cowboy, a devil, and a football guy. Okay, so this is
you walk into a bar.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
we walk into a bar, and I think I should do the extreme close up just so I can see all of our faces so very close. And I want the audience to genuinely know this, please know this, because I'm speaking from the heart on this topic. And I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, you two and Dr. Gene, of course, and Dr. Gene is so much better than all of us. Like, he's such a good person. What a good guy. But I was thinking about you two specifically, because I know we'd get to this point of the show and we'd have to say this. You two mean so much to me in terms of molding me as a man, as a father, as a friend, like everything, and your influences and your ideas. And I was thinking about you, Matt, specifically, going like, if Matt Waldman doesn't like you, you're probably not a real good person. And I was like, just Matt, your sage-like wisdom. And I bring this up, fellas, because we got a cowboy, a devil, and a football guy. And I bring it up because things are tense out there, right? We got Halloween coming up. Everyone have a good time. Next week isn't going to solve anything for a lot of people. Next week in our election is probably going to divide half the people. And whoever wins, it's the other half, okay? And I just want everyone to know, like, remember to be a good person. Remember to be friendly with your friends. All three of us have a lot of different ideas on a lot of things, but we love each other. Like, love each other. Shirt off the back, whatever. Call. What do you need? Like, I'll be there. I'll fly to Georgia or whatever. Like, that's just the way it should be, honestly. And there's just way too much division in this political climate of someone doesn't exactly agree with me, you're my enemy. Or someone can't think a certain way or think another way or whatever. And I see someone on the other side of the aisle as my enemy. People shouldn't be that way. I would at least hope not. I would at least hope that somehow, some way we can have a come together moment, because we're the ones that save us. Donald Trump is not your answer. Joe Biden is not your answer. We are the answer. We together, starting in our communities mainly, but just even with our friendships. And I've seen family members torn apart, not in my own family, but in other families. And I'm seeing, in the neighborhood, like people arguing over stuff. It's like, we shouldn't be like this. We should be like us, like a cowboy, a devil, and a football guy. So as we leave on tonight's show, and by next week's time, we may or may not know, we might have a contested election. We might not know until the inauguration. We might know by next Thursday night. But guys, I just wanted to take this moment out, one, to just praise you both and your influence on me as a man, and just how I look at the world differently because of you guys, and in a much better way, in a very good way. And I wanted to highlight all of our differences, and I wanted to highlight how we just love each other to death. And, I hope we can get a little bit of that. Sigmund, Matt, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts, because, again, next Tuesday isn't going to make about half the country happy in whatever happens. So we all should be prepared for that and know how to best react to that.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and say something first. First thing I think of, Cease, when you say that about our friendship and how we've influenced each other and grown together in some ways, or at least have our lives unfold both on the screen, on the air, and off the air as part of each other's lives. It reminds me of one of the things I like to say, that fantasy football, and there's a lot of women playing fantasy football, and I love that the audience, it gets larger and larger, but I've always felt like primarily it's therapy for dudes. It's a safe place. It's a place where you can relate to each other. It's a place maybe where things go unsaid, but it's an idea of unburdening or not feeling judgment, or a place where you keep out the things that scratch and claw and wear you down. And it's not like we are trained very well to be in touch with our emotions, or to share our emotions with each other, or say things to each other that are sincere. And I think that it's a way, this whole exercise of fantasy football, it's just a way for us to be involved and stay involved in each other's lives and have that positive effect. And then there's this whole riff I could do on the devil and how the devil's dividing us, right? You know, I mean, it's just too easy. It's just too easy.
Right.
It's just too easy because the division is a distraction from the actual plot. And, you know, I'm not really sure what to say because I'm a bit of a fatalist about the idea. I said this on the couch this week that I still think that again, this is all very Freudian. I'm not meaning to make this tie into the devil, but what we're acting out here is America's original sin, and trying to come to some sort of peace, trying to come to some sort of contrition, some idea of acknowledgement, and we have to find a way to do that peacefully, or we'll keep living this out over and over and over again. So you're right. Whatever happens in the election doesn't change that. Whatever happens in the election doesn't change that. For a nation to succeed, there has to be some sense of shared identity, some sense of shared values, some sense of, togetherness. And yet at the same time, I'll give you a metaphor. During the hurricane, as I painted the picture of the eye of the storm passing over New Orleans, it was the first time since the pandemic started that everybody was out in the streets, just talking to each other, checking on each other, just, saying hi, maybe introducing themselves to each other, just being present in each other's lives. It took a hurricane to do it, but it's a feeling I think that we all need, and we're continuing to get by with less oxygen, and I think patience is important. And I think, just trying to understand each other and seeing how we do end up having more in common when we take things out of this context. And I know that the people that are listening to the show, watching the show, practice their lives by this idea. I mean, I don't know if you'd enjoy this show very much if you didn't. So, I just think that we are, a note you hit, C, says, it's up to us. It's up to each of us individually. And the thing I like to say, as we've talked about before, Cecil, is you don't get to decide the story that you're in. You don't get to decide how that story turns out, but you do get to decide the part you play in it. And that's more than enough. And, I hope that in so much as we continue to influence each other positively, and the people in our chat room and in our community, that we continue to find ways to do that. And, brick by brick, we'll build it.
Matt, you're building it.
I would say this. I just want anybody to just imagine a full grown tree, think of a 50, 60 foot long tree that's got a huge ass trunk and lots of branches and something that your kid, if they climbed high enough, you'd feel like you have to call the fire department to get them down.
Okay.
That tree just didn't appear out of nowhere. So whether you're looking at what you're looking at in terms of our current climate didn't just appear out of nowhere. It didn't happen 4 years ago. A tree that big and that gnarly with all those roots getting under the house and all of that didn't just happen 4 years ago. Didn't happen 8 years ago. Probably took 60 years for that to be that way, and maybe even longer if you think about what's going on in that forest. So, with that in mind, it took a long time for us to get to this point. It's going to take a long time for us to fix it. And part of that is taking ownership of the fact that you can sit there and point fingers at each other and go, well, I didn't grow that tree. I didn't grow that tree. None of us grew that tree. But regardless of who's to blame, and I'll add this point because Mark Schofield made a really great point on my podcast this week, is that when you think about social media, it's whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, there is a large component, and we're all complicit in it because of the fact that these mediums are influential in this way. People get rewarded for waiting to dunk on one another. that they basically, you're waiting for someone to say something stupid, whether it's Dan Orlovsky, who I would joke around that I wait for him to say something stupid, but I don't dunk on him, except I just did right now. So there you go. But whoever it is, that's a lightning rod, people are waiting. They don't like something about them or something that they did, and it's time for them to be able to say something provocative. And do that. And it's not constructive. It's not a place for, when somebody gets it wrong, you don't always you're not going to hear about the people who look at something and say, hey, let me private message that guy and say, hey, can we talk about this? Because I don't agree with you on that, but I want to know where you're coming from with that so that we can have a conversation. And when you do that, you actually give and get more respect as a result of that. And you have something substantive. But the problem is nobody gets rewarded for that in terms of likes and looks and attention and follows and all of that. But honestly, those things aren't worth it if that's the cost. So, maybe what we need to be able to do is own up to the fact that you can look at even whether you think Donald Trump's the devil or Joe Biden's the devil, or that there shouldn't be some hockey playing Clemson person even on the ballot, whatever it is, you could look around at how people are being categorized and realize that there's something fundamentally wrong with that. Like, the media has its part in that too, and I think it's important to say that, because I got to be honest with you guys, and I'll say this, the craziest thing that's thrown me for a loop in the past 3 or 4 years hasn't been Donald Trump. It's the idea that Ice Cube is being called an Uncle Tom. To me, the idea that someone,
well, and 50 Cent now, and Lil Wayne today,
and it's just,
and Kanye, and
it's just the fact that if you're not against Trump, then you're for him is just and you're worse for it is just to me, it's indicative also of that there are people who feel it just shows you that there's this good versus evil thing going on in terms of how people see this. And the problem is that, it's far more complicated than that. It's far more nuanced than that. And maybe when you step outside your house, that you take into account that things are far more nuanced than what you see on TV. And that most often, if you look in your local area, things are much different in terms of how people relate than what you're seeing on the news. And recognize that that's reality. Like our buddy Eric Stoner, social media is not reality. He got that a long, long, long time ago. And that's one of those things that I think we need to recognize, is remind ourselves and remind our kids. And I would just suggest, if as a parting thought, is that when this pandemic is over, make it a point to get your kids out into the world and be around with them, around other people in a community, whether it's volunteering in a place that is not common to where you live, your neighborhood, but helping out, or doing other things on that regard where you can just give them opportunities to interact with different people. It's a really good idea to do that, because the first thing they've got to learn to do is get comfortable with asking questions and being ignorant. And it's okay to be ignorant, and and admitting your ignorance and saying, what is it about this, or what is it about that, or why do you do this, or why do you celebrate that, or how come you dress like this, or and be able to ask questions in a way that are non-threatening, but know that it's okay to ask questions, because you're going to learn a lot more, and you're going to have a basis for life in a way where you're not going to think that you have to know everything, that you have to be cool at all times, and that not knowing is somehow something for people to make fun of. And I think that if we start practicing doing that, then maybe at least we'll have a shot of maybe growing a better tree.
Fantastic. Peace and love to you all. Remember that. Approach it with peace. Approach it with love. Put your best foot forward. And thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for subscribing and all those great things. Love these guys. Dr. Gene included as well. Our audience included as well. There's Sigmund. There's Matt. We said bye to Dr. Gene. I'm Cecil Lammey saying stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.